Good evening and welcome to yet another live from the House of Clay. Today we are discussing a question that's on all parents' minds. Is my child growing well? Most times, parents compare their kids with neighbors, cousins, and all other children around. Oh, my child is too thin. Most of her friends are taller than her. These are doubts that all parents get, and it is a constant worry for most of them. What, after all, is good growth? That's a question that all of us need an answer to. Is it something that relates to ideal body weight? Is there an ideal height for children of a certain age? How do we know with whom we can compare our kids? These are questions that are always on our mind, and today our expert is going to answer them for you. We assure you that you will find answers to these questions through the webinar today. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our child nutrition expert, Dr. Puja R. Singhania. Puja has over 10 years of experience working in the field of nutrition and 5 plus years of experience in maternal and child nutrition as well. She holds a doctorate degree in food science and nutrition. She's a founder of Nourish 1000 Days. Her organization starts working on healthy eating patterns for children, and its foundation is based on a balanced nutritive diet for children. With nutritional guidance and support for the first 1000 years of the child's life, we can ensure that the child gets a good start in terms of physical, mental, and emotional health. To strengthen the support for the new mothers, Nourish 1000 Days has trained over 700 healthcare workers on breastfeeding and complementary feeding skills. I think this is an introduction that will surely intrigue you, but I would not like to waste your time anymore and welcome Pooja on stage. Hi, Pooja, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Kinshuk. And as always, I'm extremely thrilled to be here with Clay and interacting with parents on this platform. Clay is very close to my heart because it's a endeavor which aligns with our vision of ensuring that every child gets a very nurturing environment, right? And Clay is like that second home where every parent can send their child with that assurance that it is the most nurturing environment for my kid away from home. So it's a home away from home. So I'm very, very glad to be here today. And yes, we are, as you said, discussing an extremely important topic of concern. And that's something even I'm asked most about, about ideal weight, ideal height. So I'm glad today we are sharing this information through a platform like this. So thank you once again.
As you said, Pooja, so parents are always worried about the child's ideal weight and height. So, how can they know whether their child is in the right range and is their child growing well or not? Let's begin with this question and then we'll dive in deeper.
Sure. So, one is that, as you said in the introduction itself, that often parents tend to compare their kids with other kids to understand whether my child is growing well or not. Okay, so your, common thing is like, oh look, his friend appears taller than him, or all the children in the classroom are much taller than him or shorter than him, or he appears to be very lean as compared to his cousin. Okay, so that's the most common questions that mothers have. And also often society puts certain norms, right? Like uh, that, oh, your child is looking too lean, are you sure he's eating well, or are you taking enough care of him? So it's that constant worry for a parent that how do I know if it's okay or not, right? So uh, yes, it's okay to compare, but let's have the right yardstick for comparison. Okay, so rather than just having like comparison of a bunch of kids, in a certain classroom, it's good to think beyond this, that there have been surveys done amongst lakhs of children of a certain age and gender. So the data is collected from them and compiled together in constructing what is called as the growth chart. Okay, so these growth charts are developed by World Health Organization, and they have surveyed kids from 6 different countries, right? So there is like Ghana, Brazil, India, Norway, Oman, USA. So kids from all of these countries are surveyed. So they map those kids who have been fed well or have been nourished well since birth, and then their growth is charted. And then when you compare your kids against that chart is when you come to know that, okay, as compared to a child of the same age and gender, my child should stand somewhere here. And then you are assured, okay, if he's here, he or she is here in the green zone, that means they are doing fine and I don't need to worry. So then you get this assurance from the majority phenomenon, right? It's like, you know you are getting a rank, but then okay, you got a state rank, okay, but then you are like, okay, where do I stand at the national level? So you know your rank at the national level, but then you say, oh, but what about global level? Where do I stand at the global level? So then you compare, how you are as compared to global kids. So that's where this growth chart comes handy, right? Your comparison is against global standards, okay? And fortunate thing is, in these times, the revision of the WHO growth charts includes Indian kids as well. So we have a good chance of ensuring that our kids are also matching up with the kids globally. Yeah. So that's where a parent should look for comparison growth charts. Kinshuk, you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry, Puja. So, yeah, that was a great insight on international standards. So, tell me, do growth charts do they tell us about what should be the ideal weight and height for a child at all times? Do they should we consider them as the benchmarks?
Benchmark. Yes, yes. So to an extent, growth chart is indicative of ideal weight or the ideal height, depending on which chart you're using. But then again, so what happens is here they not just tell you what is average, but also what is above or below average. And then just like the traffic lights, as we know that green means we are good to go, so it means all is safe. Orange means get ready or be on alert, and then red means danger, right? So similarly, these growth charts have lines which are green, orange, and red, and then they are on both sides. Okay, so upper side, being overweight in the orange zone or red zone, above the orange zone is not so good. Similarly, below the green zone, being in the orange or red zone is not so good. So then you are able to find whether your child is coming closer to the green line, which indicates that average or 50% of the kids are going to be this particular weight or height at this particular age. So then it gives an assurance that yes. So then if your child is exactly on the green line, that is what indicates an ideal height or weight. Okay. But again, Kinshuk, I would like to share here with all the parents that see, no two kids are ever going to be the same, right? Like if you compare two twins, also they're not exactly the same in height and weight and stature. Yeah. So every child is very different. So here we need to understand that every child follows their own track. Okay, so it's like this, like how if you take an example of a running race. Okay, so there are tracks assigned to every person, separate tracks. Okay, and then depending on how you took off in the first few seconds, and then the track is the same length, right? But how quickly you took off in the beginning, or how much you accelerated in the end, is going to determine who won the race. But what is important is to stay on your track. That is going to be a rule, right? So similarly, for every child, their track would be different, because the child is starting at a different birth weight. Okay, so yet again, based on your birth weight, if you follow your track well till the end, that means you are doing fairly good, because that's where you were meant to be based upon your birth weight. That's where your starting point was. So then a parent must think that at least if my child is following a linear trajectory based on where they started, then they can be assured that the child is doing fine. Okay, because uh, a lot of times genetics also play a role, that some children are going to be leaner because their parents are leaner, and or some children might be taller because parents are taller, so then they will follow that trajectory. So that is something we should again consider, that if it's based on the birth weight and height of the child, there will be a certain track this child will follow.
Get it. So I understand that it's not that simple, and it's not a one size fits all for all children.
Yes,
It
yes,
is that growth chart has to be very personalized for each child. Uh,
absolutely.
Pooja, we live in the urban in India, and we are. I feel blessed enough to have all the sufficient resources to keep our children well nourished, and seemingly provide them the best diet possible. So we do all we can. All parents do in their own capacity. But is malnourishment or undernourishment a problem of rural India, or is it only restricted to rural India, or is it also prevalent in the bigger cities like ours?
Yeah, very, very good question and very pertinent there. So, if we look at urban data, you'll be surprised to know that even the recent statistics, like we do a national family health survey to understand how kids are doing, based on their weight for age or height for age. Okay, so it has been found that even in urban population, every third child, I mean 3 out of 10 kids are less than their expected height and weight. Okay,
Oh.
so now if it's like 3 out of every 10, means still somewhere we are lacking even in the urban group. So often, like in our households, we see that grandparents or relatives think that if it's a chubby child, means he's doing well. Okay, he's well nourished, at least he doesn't appear too lean, he's going to be stronger, and he's going to be more active. But then and then the moment you see a very lean child, everyone will say, oh, you really need to take care this. You never know, his immunity will be low, he may not be able to cope well, and stuff like that. So now what happens is, if a child is leaner, most parents will focus upon ensuring that the child gains weight. Okay, and that would be a focus wherein there would be easy use of a lot of high calorie foods, because we think, okay, he's underweight, so then let's ensure that he's getting more calories. And it's easier then to make a child gain weight by giving them more calorie. Okay, however, when we look at what is called as stunting, which is like lower height for age, which is a sort of a permanent damage which cannot be repaired if it's not taken care of in the first 1000 days of life. So if we look at low height for age, that is something where we all lack, that we don't understand that even if the child is at least gaining proper height, we should not have to worry so much about the child's weight, because the nutrients that are required to gain height are more difficult to find in regular food. Okay, so that means that actually, if a child had to gain more height, of course I'm sure everyone is thinking now of proteins. So yes, proteins is one of the important nutrients that we take care of when we want to look at gain in height. But other than that, also certain minerals like zinc, magnesium, calcium, iron, and then of course vitamins, vitamin A, D, E. So all of these will come together to help the child to have growth in their tissues. Okay, so that is going to help in vertical height gain. So that vertical height gain is not happening in kids, and that is also a state of malnutrition. So malnutrition means bad nutrition. Okay, so poor nutrition can be over or undernutrition. So I know I repeatedly say this in very many forums that considering that your baby is healthy enough is not, then they are not malnourished, is a complete misconception, because being overnourished is also a sign of extremely poor nutrition. And kinship, now we are seeing kids who are diabetic, or basically insulin resistance is the term we use, but they are with high blood sugars, with high blood pressure, obesity at the age of 5 years. And that's when it's the age when you're supposed to enjoy, play, get exposed to so many things, but then you are already grappling with health conditions. So all the time we think, okay, urban kids are not malnourished, means they don't look like so underweight, or they don't look like, they don't have those typical signs of undernutrition, which is the discoloration of the hair, or paleness of the skin, or maybe even having bones being seen clearly. So that kind of undernutrition may not be seen. But then what parents don't worry about is when they see overnutrition, still they are not worried that, look, the child is not properly nourished, because being overweight is also being malnourished. And correction of that is even more important, because the metabolic changes that will take place now are going to be a part of your permanent life. So the fat cell size and number, both as they increase, once it is achieved, it's very difficult to reverse that. Okay, so that's my in urban scenario, it's a different kind of malnutrition we are looking at, and parents have to be very aware. And that is why, again, I say, when you plot your child on growth chart, is when you will understand that you know this is what is supposed to be ideal. And even if I'm crossing on the upper side, it's an alarm for me that I have to be careful now and ensure the child is getting a balanced nutrition. Yeah.
Got it. I think that's an eye opener, Pooja. I have a lot more questions for you, but I think our audience has more, so I'll
Yeah.
open the floor
Yes,
to
I
the
can.
questions there. Um, One question that a parent asks is, do we have benchmarking done for Indian children? I
Hmm.
believe that must be quite different basis the global benchmarking given different food options and weather conditions.
Absolutely. The person who has asked this question is absolutely right. In fact, I wanted to even share this in the beginning. So, the Indian Academy of Pediatricians, IAP, has also charted a lot of Indian kids and then created their own growth charts. Okay, so yes, as a parent, if you're that conscious, I would say please go ahead and use the IAP charts, that is Indian Academy of Pediatricians chart. And again, yes, because they realize that Indian kids have a different growth trajectory. However, like I mentioned, that WHO in their they did a revision in 2006 of growth charts. So that's when they made it a point to include Indian kids as well. So like I said, it's Brazil, Ghana, India, Oman. So they have tried to keep a multi regional, multi centric kind of a population. But if you will, I mean, when we talk about growth charts, we always look at WHO, because then that's accepted as a standard across. And then If you will even see at level of the community, when people when there are the anganwadi workers or anybody who are working with kids in the areas, they always use what are standard growth charts. So even us as parents, when we receive a growth chart from a clinic, we are going to receive the WHO growth chart and not really an IAP one. However, if and then there are the IIT growth chart will have to be tracked physically ourselves. We'll have to take the prints and then ensure we are tracking there. So yes, if we are as enthusiastic and as conscious, we can use the IAP growth charts. But I would say that in a very general sense, WHO growth charts are the accepted standards. Okay.
Got it. Um, Again, as you said, the height and weight benchmarks are not one size fits all, because
Absolutely.
parents here are asking, mentioning their children's height and weight, and they want to know whether the child is doing fine. A parent asks, my daughter is 8 year old, 117 centimeter and 19 kg weight. Is she fine?
Okay, it's hard to tell like this, but so Kinshuk, like I said, I wanted to also share with the parents here that there are apps on the phone nowadays. Okay, so there is a what is called as a child growth tracker app. Okay, I hope it's visible to all. So it's a child growth
Child
tracker.
growth tracker, right?
Yes, and it's available on all the phones now, like both Apple and Android. So on this phone, you can download this app, Child Growth Tracker, and then just in very easy steps track your child's height and weight. Just enter the information. As many time points ka information you have, you can just enter with your child's name and birth date, and then when you go to the charts, you will be able to see where your child's curve is. So like we always track children on these charts, and it's very easy to then gauge. Like you'll get a chart like this. The moment you will enter the height and weight, you start getting the charts. Okay, so I would suggest that please parents, I know that pediatricians don't, I mean, I'm not saying this in a very negative way, but pediatricians may not have the time to even measure a child's height at every visit. Most of the times, the child is weighed, and then the you ask, okay, what is happening? How are things going on? But then we are educated people. We have the power to understand that we can measure the child's height at home. We can even weigh our child at home, and then maintain the growth chart on our own phones for always. Like so, like on weekends we always end up measuring my son's height using a simple tape and ruler, and then it's a fun activity for him also. But then it's very important that we are aware of what is the trajectory of our child. Okay, because then when you want to even address a certain concern, you will see that growth chart is actually a marker of any underlying conditions, like even thyroid conditions. Okay, like kids have thyroid, or if they have diabetes, or if they have had some episodes of illness which has caused a faltering in weight or height. So all that is really mapped very precisely through the growth chart, and that will be an insight not just for the parent but also for the expert who's going to see the child, right? So I would request that parents please download this app today only, and just ensure that you all have your child's growth chart on your own phone.
So now I think parents will have their own personal tracker for
Yes.
their child, with something that is customized to their child's vitals, and
Yes.
that should be helpful.
Yes.
A lot of questions here, Pooja, about the supplements that parents are using for children. So milk supplements, food
I saw
supplements.
Horlicks. Yeah.
Yes. So they want to know whether it is good to even use these supplements, and if they use it, is it good to use all the time? What are your views?
Sure. So, firstly, again, a very important thing here. Please do understand that when some of these growth supplement powders, or the way they are advertised on TV, that this has led to 2x growth in height, or 4x increase in height of a child. uh, Please note that these studies are not really they're sort of biased, because it's the sponsored study. So it's not always data which is reflective of the true situation. Okay. Now, having said that, I'm not saying that it's absolutely going to be a like they're totally trying to fool you by giving you something that's not so great. But what we can understand better here is that even imagine having to have a certain mix of powder as a meal. Okay, like imagine if I told you, okay, every day, since you need to be healthy or you need to grow taller, just ensure you're having this same powder as meal. So would you like it? Like, we are human beings who like lot of flavor, color, who like a lot of variety in taste, textures. So then why do we depend on powders like this, which are so standard? Okay. And besides, imagine that something that has been packed and sealed once is going to remain constant forever. It's not going to be dynamic, right? But your needs are dynamic because you are. And imagine, so one is, it's very routine, or it's very boring to have the same thing. Second thing is, it's not dynamic, means it does not change as per our needs or requirements. And thirdly, please understand that, again, like we said, nothing is one size fits all. How come one powder is good for my child and also for hundreds of other children, right? So let's again reflect on that why this one particular thing will be okay for all kinds of kids across populations. So that's something we must think of. And so what I would suggest is a good alternative, or in fact is the best way to think about, is why not we depend on natural foods for getting these kind of vital nutrients that our child requires for growth. So I think we can reflect on days of our childhood when actually we were not dependent on, say, probably a Choco's packet, or Kellogg's cornflakes, but were having idli sambar or parathas for breakfast. Okay. Or like that ad which shows that when the child comes home, the mother has given, just say, when the mama says ek chammach, or means that you are, she's taking you to a higher level. But that ek chammach, or in our case, was sometimes that ghee, and there was makhan and shakkar, or there was just maybe a handful of peanuts. There was a handful of badam, which we knew that, okay, is going to be so good for our brain and overall health. So why aren't we depending on these things to get our nutrients? Why aren't we depending on nature? Let's look back at nature. So all kinds of dried fruits, nuts, all kinds of seeds, that is your till and your flaxseed or your pumpkin seeds, all kinds of seeds that you can get from any vegetables that you're eating, all the kinds of nuts like your peanut, coconut, almond, cashew nut, those nuts. And then even and even depending on your traditional like kesar, and the milk made out of gulkand, or maybe even dried rose petals when it's summertime. So we can depend on these things, and in fact we can vary them as per the season, as per the child's need. So supposing this child is having cold and cough, then into that milk goes a pinch of haldi, or into that milk goes a pinch of nutmeg, because you know that this is going to now help the child recover faster. So we can always depend on nature or natural foods for addressing the needs of our child, and we really don't need to depend on packaged foods. I would say that it's honestly not a option when you know that you can afford better regular foods rather than having to depend on anything from a box. Yeah. So I am totally not for it. Any kind of powders, and the marketing around it is so strong. I understand that it plays not only on a parent's psyche, but it also influences kids to a large extent. But it's absolutely not the right kind of food you should give your child. Yes.
Got it, Pooja. Pooja, a lot of questions again here about the eating habits of children. Children don't like a certain food and are more interested in other kinds of foods because there are parents here who say, my child eats fruits. A lot of children don't. But
Hmm.
will fruits just suffice for the child's nutrient requirement? There are children who don't like wheat and many such things. So basically, the eating habits of children. Would you like to talk a little about how these parents can help their children develop better eating habits?
Sure, sure. So again, yes, very important thing here. I know that when parents say that our children selectively eat certain things over others. Again, one is I always say we have to respect a child's intuition or their, they are more aligned to nature. Okay, so they understand better their body and they respond to body's signals better than us. Okay, so we are very patterned to eating things in a very mechanical way. Okay, so we know acha is time pe lunch karna hi hai, whatever happens I'm going to eat now. Okay, because I know I won't get time later, and I know that later on the kitchen has to be closed and I have to wind up things, so I'm going to finish by this time no matter how hungry I am or I'm not. Okay, or else we end up patterning ourselves to thinking that this is good for me, and if I don't get this, then I'm not going to be able to survive through the day. But as opposed to this, the child always works on their intuition coming from the body, saying that, look, right now you need more water, so maybe the child is eating more fruits. At a certain phase of life, maybe the child is having only the need to probably increase in their height. Okay, so then they're having too much of only say dals, or I'm having only a lot of milk and milk products, or and so based on the weather conditions, based on their growth needs, they will reflect that what is their food preferences. Now, having said that, when they reflect such food preferences, it's not that you make available the junk food that they're looking at. So it doesn't mean that if a child is craving Maggie means that it's meant to be good for him, so his body needs it. No, that's not the case. But what I mean to say is that you don't make the junk food available at home as an option the child has to choose from, but from amongst the healthier options, if a child has said no, I don't want to have milk at all, we respect that and you offer something that is an alternative. So if it is no milk for any child means okay, he'll have to depend on calcium from green leafy vegetables or from seeds like till, or maybe even from some other pulses, or meat products. So then you just let the child adapt and have those foods more if they are not having a liking for milk and milk products. Similarly, if a child is preferring more fruits, maybe his body needs that for that time, and we have to let it be, let them follow that instinct of the body and continue that way. I'm sure in a phase it goes away, and then suddenly you'll see what they had rejected all this time they are eating happily now. So we have to respect those phases.
Got it. I think that answers a lot of questions, Pooja. One more common questions in different formats here is about foods that help build immunity for children. So, considering this changing weather, winters have gone, summers are setting in, children are suffering from cough, cold, and different types of allergies. So, some foods that help build immunity. So, if you could talk about that.
Right. So, see, as far as immunity is concerned, definitely it's one of the most important concerns for parents, because all you need is that, a sign of good health means that your child is free of diseases and frequent infections. Okay. So, while I can tell you also what are the things which are good to build immunity, I would also point out on few things which will hamper immunity. Okay. So, firstly, let's talk about what helps to build good immunity. So I think again, like I've been mentioning, a lot of us don't, we tend to have an understanding that through a day, if a child has eaten full square meal of roti, sabji, dal, chawal, and had two such meals and maybe a standard breakfast, we feel like, okay, yeah, at least the child is eating well. But we don't end up making a, a compulsory intake of, say, probably a lemon a day, or maybe an amla a day, or even compulsory having at least 5 almonds every day, and a handful of seeds on a regular basis, for that matter. Or else we don't say that, okay, let's ensure that you're having coconut water on a regular basis. Things like that build immunity. So if we had to build them into category, I would say first very important thing, category of foods which helps to build immunity is those which provide healthy fats. Okay, and we had discussed in our last session also, when we spoke about winter and immunity, we spoke about omega 3 fatty acids. That is the kind of healthy fats which come from your nuts, seeds, okay, and fish, and fish oil. So these are the most important immunity building sources. Second would be your vitamin C rich sources. So that includes fruits and vegetables. And I'm sure most of us are aware of the vitamin C fruits being amla and oranges, and your lemons and tomatoes, or even some of our vegetables like potato, sweet potato, and all. So these are the second category, vitamin C rich fruits and vegetables. And then I would say the third category would be the red and orange vegetables. Okay, so that would again be because of the vitamin A content, which is very important in building immunity. So that again would include your pumpkins and your carrots, again tomatoes, or the different kind of gourds you get, which are red, orange in color. So, and green leafy vegetables, so they are also all vitamin A rich sources. So again, that would be the third category. So if we look at category wise, it will be healthy fats, it will be vitamin C rich foods, and vitamin A containing foods, which are like, and this basically again uh, brings in a spectrum of a range of fruits and vegetables which are colorful, as well as a range of nuts and seeds which are derived from various sources in nature. So those will be the ones which will help boost immunity.
Got it. Talking about foods that are good for immunity, a parent asks that can we get the ideal diet plan for children? So,
Ideal.
how does a parent form a diet plan for the child?
Correct. So again, so we are so much into this ideal world. No, I think. Um, See, I always give this example, right? So, is there an ideal outfit? Okay. See, the ideal outfit. Say, supposing what you are wearing, I'm wearing is very different. Is there an ideal outfit? It depends on whom you're addressing, where you're going, and what time you're going to a place, right? There is no ideal um, um, ideal recipe also. Okay, because it depends, like if you're a South Indian, you might add some coconut to it. If it's a Maharashtrian, they'll add some peanut to it. So similarly, there is no ideal day's diet for a child. Okay, it and also you and I may also end up eating different quantity of food at on different days, and there would be days when it's like it's a hot sunny day today, I may not have an appetite for lunch at all. I might just want to keep hydrating myself, and I might end up eating a big watermelon and say, okay, that's it, I just want this today, this is going to be my lunch for today. So similarly, for a child, there is, like, you have to let them follow their instincts to tell them, okay, this is what I will need today. And it will also depend on the physical activity, right? Because if the child has been extremely active and has exhausted himself or herself, they are likely to come home and eat two chapatis. But then on another day, when they've just been at home and indoors, they may just not be able to even complete half of it. So we have to allow that dynamics to play. We have to allow them to just respond to their body and eat accordingly. So again, there is no ideal, but yes, there is a balance which we create, like I was mentioning, that you tend to tick off that okay, so much chapati eaten in a day or so much rice eaten in a day means okay, these things are done. But yeah, there should be some non-negotiables, like yes, this kind of this much nuts should go, 2 servings of fruits should go in my child's diet every day. My child should be having at least 2 to 3 cups of vegetables in a day, whether it is in the raw form, in the cooked form, whatever. So those are the things. But yeah, so in case what we can do, Kinshuk, is we can even share some of the basic guidelines of the servings that are required for a child in a certain day. And I think we also incorporate that through our clay kitchens, because at clay kitchens we work very closely in understanding what are the child's day's requirement, and accordingly we plan, like this much serving should go. So same way, like a rule is of 5 a day, like at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables should go to a child. So maybe to begin with, a parent can start working upon that as a standard, and then gradually pick up and understand, okay, yeah, at least so much servings of nuts also I will give, or so much serving of healthy fats I will give, and accordingly work around. But yeah, again, a child may eat very variably on a given day, and there is no standard thing that a child should consume on a daily basis.
So parents says these foods and the categories sound very nice, but how to get the children to eat them?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of patterning, Kinshuk. So if as a parent you are eating this day in and out, I'm sure the child is going to pick it up. So they are and I know that Clay also believes completely in good role play for a child, right? So if role models, in the sense that if a parent is eating it on a regular basis, a child is bound to know. At least initially you will see that they just know that they're conscious, yes, my parent is eating this, so it's something that will be good for me too. It might take some time for it to manifest in their eating behaviors, but sooner or later it will manifest, because they are just absorbing everything they're seeing around them. So if your environment is telling you again and again that yeah, this is the right kind of food. And I also say this, like often parents worry that if the child has rejected it once or twice, or maybe even 3 times or 5 times, I'm not going to offer this again, he hates it. Okay, so we'll say, oh, he or she hates this, I'm sure not going to eat it. But trust me, it takes repeated exposure, and we say at least 21 times when the child says no, I'm not going to eat this, we say okay, okay, probably it's not the time right now to offer it for another 3 4 months, but then you try again. So don't fear rejections, because there is a article which stated that the more you expose the child to a given food you want them to have, the more likely they are developing an affinity for it. Okay, so if you are going to offer beetroot repeatedly, you're most likely that the child will finally start eating beetroot. Okay, so it's, don't fear that. Of course, you don't force the child every time the beetroot is kept on the table that you have to eat it, but just wait patiently, that someday as the child sees you eat it, they are also going to pick it
Got it. One last question. Sorry, there are too many questions here,
up.
but we will try to pick them up at a later date. But one last question, I think you've addressed it before also, but we'll still pick it up. It says that is it true that vegetarian kids are less stronger than and weakly built than compared to non-vegetarian kids?
Okay. Yeah, a good question. I think very pertinent to ask that. I wouldn't say that, because see, we are. I mean, again, not taking only my statement as true, but we know there are a lot of vegan athletes now. Okay, who are doing extremely well, right? Of course, Virat Kohli is a vegan cricketer, right? So we have vegan athletes who are turning vegan because they see better outcomes in terms of their performance, and it sort of gives them more energy and vigor. Again, I don't stand against anyone who's eating non-vegetarian food, but then there should not be any insecurity attached to being a pure vegetarian. And again, that diet is also going to be equally nourishing for a child, and will fulfill the needs if done in the right way. So basically, again, we are trying to achieve a balance there. The nutrients which are of concern for a vegetarian is, of course, I'm sure all of us know that protein we think is a concern, because animal foods offer very good quality protein. So in that case, vegetarian protein sources have to be combined in the right way so that they become complete. So like we combine rice and dal together so that we have a complete protein and it's equally well absorbed. Similarly, when it comes to iron rich foods, we know that non vegetarian foods are much, the iron from non vegetarian food is better absorbed. So, when we are having vegetarian sources, we have to combine it with vitamin C rich foods so that they get absorbed better in the body. So, with with respect to these two nutrients is where the major concern comes in. But then if we know we are able to balance and combine things well, then we are able to do well. And in fact, traditional diets are already designed like that, that there is always a good combination of things which are meant to ensure absorption of the nutrients well. Okay, so I think if we go by traditional diets, we usually get it right.
Great. Yeah, I think that is mostly all the questions are answered here. I
Hmm.
would like to wrap up one last question from my end, Pooja. So basically, we live in an era of technology. You did tell us that the app helps to track the child's growth and everything. So, how does technology and also along with the schools that children go to, schools and communities, how they overall impact the child's eating habits, and how it can help uh, parents develop better nutritional education for themselves?
Sure, sure. So yes, the role of technology here is exactly like I said, that you have the power of tracking your child's growth right on your phone. So the child's growth chart is at your fingertips, and you are going to be empowered with that information, that I know my child is on the green line, so I know that things are going on well. And you're not dependent on someone else to tell you that, hey, look, your child appears too lean, you gotta do something. Or hey, look, your child is too short, and then it's not right, so make him do certain exercises. So that's where and the fact that these growth charts are now on your phone is because of the recognized need, right? Somebody has recognized the need for people to track the child's growth like this, so that you are not left in doubt and you are not misguided by anybody else. Yeah, so that's where this technology is doing a good hand holding for you. Again, also, it there is a bit of a flip side, in the sense that, of course, other than using these tracker apps, which is very unbiased objective way of looking at your child's height and weight, I feel like people should also only look for the right information sources when they're trying to understand what better my child can eat. And also, please look at people who are qualified to talk. When you're looking at online sources of information, one should look at the right kind of people you are listening to and getting the information from, because there can be, again, a lot of misleading information available. So again, to that side, I would say technology has a flip side as well, wherein we don't always get very authentic information. So look at the source of information very clearly and then decide. Yeah, and always we say turn to nature for your answers, and that will be the best way to go. Yeah, than technology. Yes.
Got it. I think we've overshot our time now, Pooja, and we'll have to call it done here.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I think a lot of questions still awaiting you, Pooja. We'll have to get you back to answer
Yes,
these questions on a later date. But parents,
absolutely.
rest assured that your questions will be answered in one or the other format.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for your time today. And thank you, audience, for asking such beautiful questions, such insightful questions. It makes the session all the more enriching. Thanks
Absolutely.
for
I want to thank you for the engagement. The parents have engaged very well. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much.
thank you.